wonder who that could be. There's somebody at the door. There's somebody at the door. Da, 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 da. Oh, if it isn't our old friend, Master Chief.
Ooh, what have you got there? A package? Oh, thank you very much. Ooh, have you done something different? Something with your hair? Oh, well, looks good.
Alright, let's go open our package.
Open me, open me. Biomutant.
Well, this isn't Halo.
Well, it seems that we are not playing a Halo title this time around. We are playing Biomutant. Now, I got the PS5 version. I know you would have seen in the video there that it was PS4, but with the PS4 version, you get a PS5 free upgrade. So why the hell not play it in its best form? And I'm really fond on playing this. This is something that's been on my radar, Biomutant that is, for a number of years. I'm always a big fan of these open world games where you've got the little leveling up aspects involved with it. So I'm wondering whether Master Chief has picked out something good this time. You're just going to have to stick around, Gundies, and see whether Biomutant is worthy of your collection. Let's jump in. One of the strong things that Biomutant does straight out the bat, really strong, is the amount of customizations from the very get-go of the game. I literally spent well over an hour tweaking things for my main character. And we start off with being able to choose different breeds. I went with, personally, the Rex breed. There was other things like the Dungdron, Rex, Hyla, Fip, and Murgle, but the Rex was more suited to me as it had the most intellect and health from the get-go. And I'm, the RPG player in me just loves to have that when you're starting off. Then, to my surprise, the customizations continued. We got to define the genetic structure, which was really fun and interesting because it gave you some real difference with physical appearance, some looking a little bit funnier than others. So that's probably where I spent a lot of my time. And then we got to choose the color of the fur. I literally spent probably the most time here just trying to come up with my final design. And this was my final design. And I just think he's ever so cute and fluffy. Just have a look at it, guys. You can melt butter with this little character. Then lastly, I got to choose a class. You got to pick between Deadeye, Commando, Psy-Freak, Saboteur, and Sentinel. I went with Deadeye as I think it was really just the big sword that made me think of Final Fantasy, so I had to pick this one. It's from the very early start of the game that we get this amazing narration piece that flows through the game.
How can something as beautiful as this be dying? A plague is ruining the land, but the tree of life still stands.
And that was done by David Shaw Parker. Now, I had to do a little bit of research because I was like, I know this name, I know this voice, where have I heard it? Now, if you've watched the classic 1992 Christmas movie, The Muppets Christmas Carol, starring Michael Caine, that is, you will know that he played the part of this spider in this movie. And I was like, oh my god, that is where I've heard it. And he also did some voice work, digging a little bit deeper, in Horizon Zero Dawn, so there you have it. Our first major battle comes against a major boss, being the Looper Lupin, who ends up being the main protagonist within the game. It's really cute seeing the comic book sounds coming up on the screen as you battle against this enemy. And unfortunately, this guy is way too strong for us to beat in our opening battle. But it's a really cool way to introduce us, the gamer, to the opening controls of how the battle system works. The story behind Biomutant is quite an interesting one and kind of similar to the world we live in, the real world that is, where some greedy companies just continue to pollute and damage the world. Well, the humans did some real damage here in this world of Biomutant, so much so that they wiped themselves out. They were pumping chemicals into the waterways, airways and environments, and ultimately wiped themselves out, but the animals behind began to mutate into these ghastly creatures which we, our little hero, have to go up against on our quest, that is, to try and protect and rebuild the world back to its original form. And we go up against some real tough enemies along the way, but our ultimate goal is to save the Tree of Life, which is holding on
to its dear little leaves that it has remaining.
Like other open world games, the gameplay is done via main quest missions, side quests, area conquests, and taking over rival tribes. All of this while trying to do a full morality system. The morality system is a nice addition to the game, giving you the choice of going either good or bad. I personally did a little bit of a mix of both, with feeling a little bit bad in some spots where I was like, I can't be bad here. But later on, we find that we need to be a little bit of both to unlock certain things, which I will explain as we go on. Leveling up within the game can be completed via a number of different things, mostly done by completing missions and beating enemies in combat. The leveling up also gives you the ability to upgrade one of 6 options, these being vitality, strength, intellect, agility, charisma, and luck. For me, I'm mostly focused on strength and defense, especially in the beginning of the game, because the enemies are quite challenging and you're going to find yourself dying. Well, I know for me, I was dying quite a bit. Speaking on the enemy difficulties, for the most part, once you start to develop your levels of skills and you're getting there, moving on within the game, the enemies do get quite, I would say, relatively easy, and they do match your level. So if you're around that level 30, the characters will be around that level 30 mark. So you don't really go into any areas where the enemies are super easy. They tend to match your level as you go through the game, which I think is a good thing. The character designs in Biomutant I thought were really cool. I loved the cute little furry little critters that had the big teeth and the fluffy little tails, all the way to the quirky black blob things, to the ever so weird things that were just out of this world, mutations that you just couldn't imagine. And I just thought that this was something that the game was really strong with, was the character designs. And I really do hope that if there is a Biomutant 2, that they continue to build on this world of characters. Weapons and combos play a big role in this game. Weapons are broken into melee weapons and ranged weapons. These mostly unlocked via completing side quests and finding them along in your journey in things like crates, in treasure chests, in anything you can think of, cabinets, anything that can be locked away. There generally will be something in one of those, as long as it's glowing, that is. I will be honest, I did spend a huge amount of time changing in and out of weapons, and I did find myself having a lot of fun with doing weapon upgrades. But I did go back to one of my all-time favorite weapons. It was one of the basic ones you get towards the start, the Hoover Grew Blade. Just something about the mixture of it being part vacuum cleaner, part ceiling fan. It really just cracked me up, and I spent my time maxing out this weapon, and it definitely isn't the strongest weapon in the game, but for me it's just my absolute go-to. Ranged weapons in the game were quite useful, those being the gun type ones, but they were a little bit OP, I must say, especially towards the end of the game. These were, if you were just using your gun, you could easily take out a lot of enemies quite quickly. I tend to like to switch up a bit by going in between the ranged weapons and the melee weapons, just to make it a little bit more fun, and you're not constantly using the same thing. Through leveling up, we also unlock upgrade points for unlocking things like melee moves, and most importantly, the Super Wung Fu ability. The Super Wung Fu ability was unlocked from successfully doing a number of changeable combat moves where you link it up to get this ultimate attack called the Super Wung Fu ability. And this would, in a short amount of time, would grant you the abilities to do various combo moves against one enemy or the group of enemies. And I just love this little bit that they had put into the game. It was something I thought was really cool. We also unlock bio points found in areas from defeating bio creeps. These unlocking a variety of bio moves that range from fire attacks to lightning moves to acid based attacks. Depending on your enemy, you may need to switch one of these bio moves out within your itinerary. It's something I thought was a really cool addition to this game. And then lastly, we have Psi powers, which are quite similar to the buy points. This time around, these are unlocked when you do things that I should say are good or evil, which is why at times I find myself being a little bit naughty to unlock some of these more attacks that needed the evil ability done to unlock these. And just when you think Biomutant has packed so much into the game, they throw in the mounts. Now, my favourite mount within the game had to be this big tank-like mount called the MK Tron. And this was super useful in areas where there was a lot of enemies surrounded by oil, which could kill you. Now, the other thing that I came across, another mount which absolutely cracked me up, was the Mikafingo, which was basically this thing that was, it's like Thing from the Addams Family, essentially, where you're this hand that's running around, and you can, except this time around, you can shoot. You're basically a golden metal thing, and if you're going up against an enemy, you can break through their defense barriers, which normally you couldn't do with your own guns. And I just absolutely loved this mount. It cracked me up, just being this random hand running around. Hats off to the team here. Super funny, super love it. Graphically, for the most part, the game was pretty sound. There was a few moments where there was a little bit of flickering of graphics out in the background where the game was trying to catch up with the pace that I was running at. But for the most part, everything looked nice and crisp and sound. Didn't have any issues with getting stuck anywhere or falling into anything and not being able to get out. It seemed to run quite well. I mean, I'm playing it 2 years after it launched, so there might have been quite a number of bugs back then, but for me, I never really came across any. And the world itself was really well done. The map was huge. You know, you're going from one end of the map, you might have some lush green grass areas to other areas of the map where it's just dark, dingy, wet and spooky in a way, and then going through other areas where it's just desolate, it's just dry, and you can actually even see the heat on the screen. I really liked all those sort of details. So graphically wise, the game is quite sound. Towards the end of the game did get a little bit repetitive, unfortunately. We were unlocking puzzles, and in the beginning they were fun, but towards the end it was just the same old puzzle over again, and I just found that a little bit frustrating. And then we had the part where we're overtaking settlements, so it was kind of like, if you've ever played things like Far Cry, where you're taking over parts of the map, generally with those sort of games, for the most part it's the same, but they would switch it up a little bit. Well, with Biomutant, it was just the same repetitive tasks, like shooting the barrels to knock down upon them and burn them, or just shooting certain little targets within this area. It just got a little bit repetitive, and I'd hate to say it, but a little bit boring, and that's never a good thing when you're playing a game and you're just wanting to get past that part to continue on. Before taking on the final boss of the game, we have to take out 4 bosses, those being world eaters. Now, these world eaters are munching on the tree of life, and it's up to us to stop them from doing so, to let life continue to heal. Now, I have heard reports that if you decide to let them continue to eat the tree of life, that you have to repeat that battle again, but I have never done that. So if you have, please let me know in the comments what that actually did. But for the most part, the world eaters do pose quite a challenge. For some reason, I think the second world eater for me was more challenging than any of them, and it did take me a good half an hour, I think, to get past. But from what I've seen, spoken to most people, that they found the world eaters to be quite easy. But then again, I have to remember, this is probably a game that's probably aimed at more children rather than grown-ass men like myself. Then we have the final battle against the Looper Loop, and the whole game has built up this hype to go up against him. And I must say that it was a little bit of a disappointment. It was far too easy. Maybe it was because I was over level 30 that it might have posed a little bit less of a challenge, but I found myself saying, and I hate to say this, oh, was that it? Which is never a good thing to say at the end of the game. I thought the character of itself was really good, but there was never really much of a story based around this character. And that's probably the thing I did notice about Biomutant, was the overall story itself. It had some solid foundations on it. When we had that part where we're talking about the world has been mutated because of this organization, the Texanol company, but then you have this boss that really doesn't factor in too much of a background story about him, and then we're going back and forth between our own childhood and life, and it was just a mix of too many stories, and it was never really a real good concrete story behind Biomutant. I think that's kind of let it down a little bit, and having that bit of a lackluster boss finished off my review here on a little bit of a sour note, I must say. But I have to be honest with you guys out there, if the game isn't quite up to scratch and things I don't like are there, I've got to give you the honest truth. Well, there is my review on Biomutant. Hope you enjoyed, especially that skit at the beginning. I must say, overall, for the most part, Biomutant was pretty decent. It wasn't this game that blew me away, but it was something that I have enjoyed so far, and I do plan on getting the platinum for it. Now, that's saying something, because if I absolutely hated this game, I wouldn't be going for that platinum, especially when it's quite a lengthy time one to get the whole 100%. It had some great aspects of this game where, you know, it had some, I love the character designs, I love the world itself, and there was just such fun with a lot of the weapons. But then it was let down by a bit of a lackluster story and just a lot of repetitiveness, which brought the overall score down. So for Biomutant on PS5, I give it a 6 out of 10, but I really do hope that they bring us Biomutant 2 and really just polish the things that didn't work out and just really expand on the things that did, and perhaps not have so many different things that we can upgrade, and just narrow it down a little bit more linear. Sometimes less is more, I always say. Well, hope you enjoyed. Coming up next, we have the RoboCop review, and it's going to be a lengthy one. I just know it's probably going to be sitting around that 20 to 30 minutes. So when that comes out, you're going to have some popcorn, have a coffee, have a scotch, have a wine, have a gin, have whatever you fancy. You're going to need it because it's going to be a big one. Alright guys, I'm Gunnermus Gaming, and don't forget to subscribe, fools. See you later.